What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Tonight's live production is brought to you in part by Prairie Sky Recovery Center, Prairie Harm Reduction, Possibilities Recovery Center, the Elizabeth Fry Society of Saskatchewan, the Community Addiction Peer Support Association, and Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Moms Stop the Harm. Tonight's guest, Gord Garner, spent 30 years on the end of a crack pipe. Today, he spends his time smashing stigma and teaching this nation a new way to talk and think about substance use as the vice president of the Community Addictions Peer Support Association. And we're going to meet him right after this. I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years, I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work, and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Okay. Let us bring in Gord. What's up, Gord? How are you?
I'm good, Daniel. Nice to be here. I really enjoyed the music at the beginning, so I'm hoping you're going to send me the set list later because
I very well could.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you would like to say before we get started?
I'd like to say thanks to everybody who's tuned in, and thank you for creating this platform for people to talk about their experiences in a way that might be beneficial to others. And I don't have that much of a glorious story, but I'm hopefully that I might have a few words that might mean something to somebody, and that would help me sleep better tonight.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's jump in. So, why don't we talk a little bit about how you got here? So, tell us a little bit about growing up, Gord.
Oh, I grew up with this sort of, I wasn't that bright of a kid, and so my mother would tell me I made her happy, and I thought that made me powerful and responsible for her feelings, and my father told me I made him angry, and so I thought then that meant I could keep him peaceful. And so by the time I was 6, I was managing 2 adults in my life, in my own head, and my behaviors controlled others. And so I was kind of confused about that. And then I read these books, and it always started in a land far, far away in a time long ago. And I thought that made it a fairy tale. But actually, that's just history and geography. The fairy tale is the last 2 lines, happily ever after. And so I had become, convinced in some ways that if I wasn't happy, there was something wrong with me. There's something wrong with the world. I had no idea that unhappiness was a natural experience in this life, and something not to be shed, but something to be experienced that's appropriate towards experiences I was having.
So, were you around any drinking or using growing up?
No, I was around gambling and violence and other things, but there wasn't any drugs or alcohol in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
How were you in school? You make friends easy?
Oh no, not until I figured out how to be like a sugar dealer. So
what's a sugar dealer? Hang on now. What's a sugar dealer?
Well, that's somebody who steals money from his parents to buy candy bars to hand them out at school. And so No, I was traumatized early, so I had speech problems. I had attention problems, and so I was hit a lot at school by teachers and students, and diagnosed as being in those days what severely mentally retarded and put into a special classroom. Um, and so that left me feeling angry, I would say, with the baseline and rebellious towards systems of judgment. Eventually, I learned how to speak English, and then people understood I hadn't been faking when I told them I read the books, and things changed a bit, but not my attitude. I was an outsider.
Mm-hmm. And
I,
how old?
I got D minus for citizenship in grade 9. That gives you some idea.
That doesn't sound very good. You weren't a very good citizen according to the academic system.
I would say, yeah, if you know,
Yeah.
I was brutal towards the academic system.
Mm-hmm. How old were you
Yeah.
the first time you got loaded?
Oh, I wouldn't. I think the first time I smoked a joint was in the basement in grade probably 11, maybe 12, and it's the first time I heard Leonard Cohen sing. The first time I smoked a joint, and the first lines I heard Leonard sing was, "I stumbled in an avalanche, and it covered up my soul."
Hmm.
And had no idea in the world that what was the greatest moment of my life up to that point was about to be our doorway to other things. For me personally, lots of people smoke pot and don't have any issues, but I wasn't one of them.
So what led you to your first use?
Oh, socialization, just a group of folks that I end up hanging with,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to fit in, wanting to be part of, wanting to break the rules. The rules didn't work for me, so why
Mm-hmm.
would I hold on to them?
Mm-hmm. So you said there what was the best moment of your life led you down something else. Now, up to that point, that getting high, that smoking that joint was the best point of your life at that point? Like you still think that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to describe, but there's a rocking chair when we were young, and my mother gave it to me later in life and said, "Here's the rocking chair," and it's where we had the best times. And what we did in the rocking chair is my brother and I would sit on my mother's lap, and she would rock, and we would pretend we were somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best times of our life was pretending we didn't have the lives we had, pretending we were somewhere else. It's kind of tragic in terms of happy memories,
Yeah.
made up ones, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's true.
Mm-hmm. So after your first use, like I know for me, the first time I got loaded, I was like, wow, this is it for me. I'm home. Like was that the case for you?
Well, I experienced the criminality of all that really quickly, in terms of getting home and smelling like pot in a house where no one smoked cigarettes even,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to find a place to stash a little bit of dope I had. And then we used to talk about that because of criminalization, it immediately made us and them and became outsiders and rule breakers. And there were suddenly people you couldn't have in your life anymore because you couldn't trust them to tell other people. It really had a social impact that we still see today for many people.
Mm-hmm. So it drove a spike in between you and your family.
Yeah, me and my family, me and a lot of the friends I had up to that point,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the sense of outside, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that.
Yeah. So you were just like, fine, screw you guys. I'll go and do this
Yeah, yeah,
somewhere
no,
else.
I had no problem being on the other side of the line. I mean, they had hit me, they had brutalized me, they had chained me.
Uh-huh.
I had no problem crossing the line.
Okay. So did you realize it was an escape? Like after the first time and you're like, oh wow, like did you realize that okay, I found a place to hide now or
No, I had none of that as an experience.
mm-hmm.
I just, it was an identity as a rebel, an identity as an outsider. It wasn't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
didn't even have any sense of escape.
Did you graduate?
Grade 12, yeah, I didn't go to school that year, but I wrote the exams and passed.
Oh my.
So, yeah.
So what were you like after you got out of high school then? Like when you entered into the real world, did you go get a job right away, or what did that look like?
Yeah, this is a long story. I am an old man. And so let me tell you what it looked like. It looked like a young child had grown up, convinced that if he acted a certain way and behaved a certain way, that the people around him would be happy and peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out into the world and I found a lot of unhappy and angry and sad people. And I did my very best to cheer them up. But I might have been the world's most happy person. And so I quickly knew where the bands were playing and where the games were played and all that kind of stuff, and organized a lot of spectacular moments, but the time in between those moments kept stretching into darkness, and the glorious moments, got shrinking smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. So in the end, they disappeared. But there was a while there, when there was 2 or 3 hours of brilliance every day, of shining, of playing together, dancing together, laughing
it wasn't all
together.
bad. Couldn't have all been bad, man. I had some great times when I was loaded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. They went away though, like you said.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you ever try treatment?
Yeah, a whole bunch of times. 30, and then probably 10 treatment centers by the time I was done. Mm-hmm. So, but the science wasn't caught up at the time, and so you'd go to treatment, and you'd crash for a few days, eat some food, and it was always the best days of my life. You could tell everybody the truth, and nobody asked you to leave, and then you'd step back out, but nothing had changed. And people were funny in treatment centers. They'd have you write down everything you'd done that you felt bad about, and then they'd burn it in a barrel. Wow, that's over. And it's like, hallelujah. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to the people I did that to. I'm not sure it's over for them. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had any experience that I'm not going to do it again. Mm-hmm. So it became that sort of pattern where I'd show up and I'd tell everybody how the terrible things I'd done since the last time I'd been to treatment. And we burn the paper, and then I go out and do it all over again. Mm-hmm. And so it began to look, there was overwhelming evidence in my life that I couldn't change, that I wouldn't change. And of course, according to most of the places I went to, that meant I didn't care about other people. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't figure out why I cried so much if I didn't care.
Yeah.
And, some of those, experiences are extremely harmful. Some of them were just people doing the best they could in 28 days of trying to get through to someone like me who couldn't hear very well. Some of it was malicious. I graduated from one treatment center, graduated and got home, and there was a letter in my partner's hands telling her to get away from me. I wasn't going to make it from the treatment center.
Really?
Yeah.
What were your first thoughts when you saw that?
Well, I guess that's that.
Did she listen? Did she leave?
Well, she didn't want to believe, right? Mm-hmm. But you heard enough people often enough, long enough, you stop waiting for it to happen and start just diving into it, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm not going to show up next week, why would I show up today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I embraced my doom, and I spent a good part of my life hoping to die.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awful to not to fail to die. Death was like this really warm idea for me.
So were you using to die?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Promises.
Yeah. Everybody else is getting lucky. What's wrong with me?
Well, I ran to a doctor late in my treatment experiences, and as they kicked me out, they said, "You don't think that stuff will kill you?" And I said, "Promises. My friends, my family,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's been saying now for years I'm going to die, but like I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse. Because I had become convinced, Daniel, that I was going to hurt everybody I knew. I had lost all my friends and all my new friends and all my new jobs and all my new money.
Yeah.
Everything that I got, I went away.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want anything anymore. And I didn't want to hurt anybody. And but, I
So
couldn't stop talking to people. Yeah.
so you didn't want to die to kill the pain. You wanted to die to kill the pain for other people.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've heard you say that a couple of times. You would go out and try to make the unhappy people happy. So what was
Yeah.
what was that like? Like did you have any like solid friends? Like did you have any friends throughout this whole experience?
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, like
Mm-hmm.
the part of me that wanted to live, the part of me that wanted a peaceful world, the part of me that wanted the people around me to be happier and experience life and laughter and dancing and beauty and art.
Mm-hmm.
That part of me, people were attracted to that part of me.
Yeah.
It was a true story.
Mm-hmm.
Just it would wind down and diminish into the desperation of addiction, and take their money, take their car, take their trust, take their goodwill, and
Mm-hmm.
hate myself. When I was young, I think everybody's probably seen the movie Titanic, so
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it or anything, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the boat sank, right, and the
Mm-hmm.
band played. And when I was young, they had a version of that movie, and I saw the band playing, and I wanted to be in the band. Oh my God. I wanted to be noble. I wanted to be graceful. I wanted to play while the others got away and go down with the ship. Jesus, what a beautiful, beautiful
Heroic.
way. Yes. But it turned out I was the person throwing the kids into the life raft and jumping in and sailing off on my own. It's
Huh.
exactly how I behaved.
Yeah.
And so that was devastating to me, to watch myself
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again betray everything I believed in, betray the people who trusted me. And I had given up all hopes of changing that. I had been to a bunch of treatment centers. I had
Mm-hmm.
made thousands of vows. I had done all kinds of stuff to try to stop it. It
Mm-hmm.
just happened.
So did the treatment centers, did any of them ever tell you like this is the only way and if you don't get clean this way you might as well just go out and die?
Well, they all seemed to think that once he told me how to do it, that meant I could.
Mm.
And so, and nobody wanted to talk about reoccurrence and relapse as not as part of recovery, not as part of getting well, but as a part of an expected condition around this. That it would take a while to give myself the capability of holding on my decisions. That there was neuroscience involved, there was brain activity involved, in that my brain had been hijacked in a way
Mm-hmm.
that my primal brain believed that I saved my life by smoking crack and drinking whiskey.
Yeah.
And that in times of fear, my primal brain would override my frontal cortex. That's how it works, right? You're not supposed to wonder about how big the bear is or, any of that stuff. You're supposed to see the bear and run, right? You're not supposed to think. And
Yeah.
so I would have a feeling or I would have a memory or someone say something nice to me. I drive down the road in a car and window would be down, and big hit record on the radio, and I'd feel happy. And then I would just be onslaughted with all these horrendous memories of my self-destruction and unkindness to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just go off and seek death again immediately. It's like, oh my God, I couldn't experience a moment of happiness without wanting to die.
Yeah.
And so, it's very difficult, eh? And I know you know this, Daniel, when someone says to you, oh, you can have a good life, and you're going, well, I have to stop hating myself first.
Yeah.
You want to teach me how to do that? And so they can't really do much with you in 28 days, eh? And
No.
And you have all these quizzes about, are you ready? Are you willing? No one ever asked me if I was capable. I've seen people hammering on the door of detox centers. I have to see people hammering on the door of treatment centers saying, "Let me in. I can't do this anymore." And I've seen them flee an hour later, saying, "I can't stand it. I gotta go." What couldn't they stand? Right?
Yeah.
Why were they running from where they were so desperate from? Because they didn't have the capacity yet to sit with themselves long enough.
Yeah.
Right? To be grounded.
That's
and to
really
let
interesting.
That go back. Right?
Yeah.
And so who of us is ready? It's more about who of us is capable right now, and can you stay with us long enough to help us become capable, and can you make it safe for us not to be successful? Because not many of us are the first time or the second time or the third time. For heaven's sakes, the average quit time for cigarettes is 8. And that goes with it a lot of psychological damage and trauma and disappointment, right? So why in heavens would anybody say, "Oh, take 28 days and never do that again. You're treated now."
Yeah. 28 days, man. Like, come on. I was lucky in my journey. Like, I had supports in place. Like, I have family members that are, quite frankly, they were connected in the addictions community, and I was able to, move forward. But when you said we need to have a safe space to not succeed, that's really interesting to me, and it's a really valid point, because like it's hard, and we're probably going to stumble around, and like there's a lot of treatment centers where you mess up one time, like if you even have like bad etiquette, they just kick you out the door. Back to the wolves you go. This guy's too sick to be here.
Well, imagine so I'm a big proponent for increasing health across the continuum of substance use. And so, and other people describe that as harm reduction. I described it as substance use health. But imagine if you took treatment centers and started measuring them through the harm reduction versus this magical idea that people that come here are never going to use substances again. Understanding that people aren't going to use substances again with 28 days support, that's still going to support them, this experience, right? But the other folks, right, would go, "Oh, this is just a starting point. Oh, I'm not a bad person. I didn't disappoint everybody. I've got this thing. I'm trying to change how my brain works, and it happened again, and I just need to get grounded again. I don't need to go off for 10 years in self-hatred and see if I survive." And again, a lot of people don't even get to the door because they believe the answer is you can't use anything. And I don't have any experience about not being able to use anything. So why would I go to that door if that's the answer? It's one of those things. There's nothing quite like being like in your 50s, having used substances for 40 years and showing up somewhere. And, I don't want to experience ageism, but it is my experience that, somebody 20 just got out of college has a list there and says, "Have you ever considered using less drugs?" Let me say, that's a tough one.
Every goddamn day. Like, I think about it.
And I'm at the hospital, and I got a thing there that says this is a drug-seeking patient, and the buzzer goes off, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't say I've been to 8 treatment centers. It doesn't say that I've tried most of my life to change my life. And so they treat me like I'm drug-seeking versus help-seeking. Because that's what they keep track of.
Yeah.
Not my efforts to be better. Okay.
That's really interesting. You hear something, I've been to 8 treatment centers. Like, even myself, I'm conditioned to think like, oh God, this guy's, not doing real well. But like this person sought help 8 times.
Yes. Despite all the evidence that there was no help.
Yeah.
I see people, right?
Yeah.
So I've experienced homelessness. I see people outside sometimes, and I see them one day, they're lying on the sidewalk, and the next day I see them in a doorway. And I go, wow, that person's in a process of getting better. Well, because yesterday they didn't sleep in the doorway and they're exposed to the elements more. And today they moved into the doorway seeking shelter in a better health condition for themselves. What level of optimism and courage does it take to do that when yesterday you believe there was no point seeking shelter?
Wow.
And what level of unkindness do we have as a society that someone would come and kick them out of the doorway?
You know, you see those freaking engineering, and I don't know what cities they're in, but I've seen pictures of like underpasses. They put spikes on under the underpasses so people can't sleep there.
Yes.
Like that just speaks volumes to me of how twisted we are as a society.
We're not pigeons, right?
No.
Right? You have these wire things to keep the pigeons out. We're not pigeons, we're people.
Yeah.
And so sorry, I'm rambling on here, Daniel.
No, it's okay.
The question is not what's wrong with people experiencing homelessness. It's always what's wrong with certain aliens that we allow them to experience homelessness. That's the question we need to ask.
Got a comment coming in here from Leanne. Leanne says, I'm totally saying that now help seeking, making my language. Thanks, Gord. I may have butchered that comment. I think we know what you're talking about, Leanne, though. Yes, no, Gord, when I had a conversation with Gord last week, I probably said to him 5 times, like, dude, you're blowing my goddamn mind right now. Like, it's just, it's so backwards the way we think.
So if only 1 in 10 of us ever get to the door to ask for help, right? And we keep asking people who got to the door, what was it like and how can we make it better? We're really looking at a broken box and wondering if we can get the broken box to be okay, but it's the wrong box. The box we need is one that says anywhere along the use of your substances, if you're not comfortable with how that's going, you don't need to pre-diagnose. You don't need to get to some dark place. You can just go to your GP and say, hey, my mental health's okay. My physical health's not bad, but geez, I've been waking and baking. It wasn't really part of my plan. I don't know what to think about that. Do you have any information?
Yeah.
That's all, right?
Yeah.
And because most Canadians are going to use substances.
Yeah.
Someone like myself, my best health outcome is not using them. But that's a small minority of us, right?
Yeah.
But if everybody else had been talking about or expressing an interest in their health around their substance use, how much easier it would have been for me to talk to a GP. How much better understood would I be at the hospital? You got this great desire to get us out of the emergency rooms. Like our emergency isn't equal to their emergency.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, they're just drunk. They're intoxicated to the point of near death. That's a health emergency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they can't wait to get them out at the door.
I'm overdose. Reversing my overdose is not treating the causes of my overdose for most people. When we see people at supervised consumption sites, why are they there? Well, they know the substances they have on them could be deadly, and they also know they're going to use them. So this is the best self-protection they've come with because they're not able at this point not to make a decision not to take the dangerous substance. Do you want to condemn people for that, or do you want to preserve their lives?
Yeah. Yeah, this thought of, people do better when they feel safe. I mean, that's not a secret. So it just seems strange, like that we find a level. There's a level of and there's a certain kind of sickness that the only way that society wants to treat that is just by throwing it out to the wolves and pulling up their bootstraps and somehow conforming to what the system would like to see of them before they deserve help. And that's a very real thing.
Well, and sometimes we have the storytelling that we do, and I want to be very gentle with this. Okay. Sometimes we have this storytelling, and some of the stories we hear being told is, I got to this point where the suffering was enough that I stopped. And society says, oh, well, let's give you some more suffering and then you'll stop. And people kind of forget that it's not the suffering that gets us to stop. The diagnosis of a substance use disorder is the fact that suffering doesn't change the behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. Reaching out for help, getting the right help, finding inspiration, finding a safe place not to be successful right away, finding a listening ear, finding someone who can say, well, I did a bunch of that stuff too, but I'm here okay. And so the suffering may have got us to ask for help, but it's not what brought about the change. Mm-hmm. And we really need to get rid of that paradigm that if I suffer enough, I'll quit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Got a comment on that.
Yeah.
Claudia, thank you for the comment. Claudia says, that is so sad that we have gotten to a state where the public is here to support the healthcare workers, where it should be the other way around. The healthcare system was created to support the public, and that includes people who use substances.
Absolutely. And I think we also want to have a compassionate view on the healthcare workers because they use a lot of substances and they get seriously, right?
Yeah.
They're coming from a place of experiencing trauma on a daily basis. They're often in emergency room settings, and but they have virtually no training around substance use disorders or addiction. And so they're, again, I've had friends who've gone to hospitals for overdoses and have been turned down from Narcan on the way out because people working there think, well, if we give you Narcan, that means you're going to use drugs again. It's like, well, don't you understand? You reversed my overdose. She didn't do anything with my addiction. So yes, I'm going to use drugs again. I'm dope sick right now. Mm-hmm. And so it's education, it's compassion. And think about nurses right now. You're a nurse in the hospital and you're using substances and you tell anybody you're going to lose your job. Mm-hmm. Now, how much compassion do you have for me there, who you can't seem to have an impact on, who can't seem to change the outcome of my life, and you became a nurse to help people and you don't know how to help me? Yeah. Where's your compassion well there? Mm-hmm. You can't ask for help. You don't know how to help me. I'm a bit of a frustration for you. Just as a human being, right?
Yeah. And so, how easily we forget.
Well, you just look at the dynamics there and people are struggling. Mm-hmm. So I look at a lot of our first responders there, and they don't have the opportunity to say they're struggling and they don't have the opportunity to get help. And we're asking them, well, be compassionate to us. Well, how do we offer them some compassion? Mm-hmm. And it's never easy to offer compassion first, because we often want to be powerful with our like and our compassion. Mm-hmm. If I care for you, you'll get better, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because I want my caring to be powerful, just like I cared for my mother and father, and I wanted them to be happy and peaceful. Well, we've got the same thing in our healthcare systems. If you'll get better, we'll care for you. Now, in some cases, we've developed a higher level of compassion with people with cancer. We know, a bunch of people aren't going to get better, but we stay with them. We talk about quality of life. Mm-hmm. But we haven't brought that to substance use and said, hey, I care for you whether you change or not. Your life is precious whether you're using substances or not. You don't have to do anything to get my care. Yeah. Because caring for you is not a burden for me. Because I can do that without control. People talk about compassion fatigue. Compassion doesn't fatigue people. Compassion is a beautiful source of energy and nurture for each other.
Yeah.
Control. Trying to control other human beings through my actions, that's fatiguing.
Yeah.
So when someone tells you from the healthcare field they got compassion fatigue, just let them know, no, you got control fatigue. Mm-hmm. You're trying to control the outcome of your patients through your actions. Let that go.
Just
do
care.
Best practice. Just care. Yeah. You'll be healthier.
So, so what brought you to your last use?
Oh, I didn't die. It was like,
ta-da!
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, I bet you it was awful at first.
Well, yeah, no, I gave up.
Gave up trying to die.
Yeah. And if I wasn't going to die, then I tried one more time to change. And I didn't think I could. There was like no hope, right? I didn't go, I've had enough. It's like,
I did that every day.
yeah, no, none of that, right?
Yeah.
So that was a long time ago when I had those moments.
Yeah.
No, it was like this. So my last, I trigger story maybe? I don't want to be harmful to people. So my last day of active use so far was a while ago. It'll be 11 years, I think, in this July. If that's still the case by July, I have no way of knowing. But I was living in a utility shed, and then I found out I had an intake appointment at the hospital the next day. And so, and I had a bit of money, so I got 3 8-balls and a bottle of whiskey and cracked my way through the night and was crawling around on the floor looking for things that didn't exist. And of course, I hadn't had a shower for a week, and I'd been living in this shed, and I was running late for the doctor. But I got a brilliant idea. I thought there's a liquor store on the way to the hospital. I'll get a bottle of whiskey and I'll drink my way to the hospital. And when I got to the liquor store, there was a phone booth. So I called somebody who was never home, but it was like a miracle he was home. So I grabbed a taxi and went and got somewhere dope. And I was driving by the hospital with Coke in my pocket and a bottle of booze. And for some unknown reason, asked I got to stop. And I stuck the bottle in the bushes out front of the hospital and the dope in the washroom outside the doctor's office and presented myself. And this is why stigma matters to me so much. I went in there, 56-year-old, 135, 140 pounds maybe, looking exactly what I was, some person who could not stop taking drugs, who didn't eat food, who didn't wash or shower, who stunk to high heaven. And this madman, this doctor, jumped up and said, "Wow, look at you. You're here. You're alive. That's amazing. How great is this?"
Huh.
And I was so disappointed, because I expected him to send me away and that I wouldn't have to try anymore ever again, right? And I could just go try dying again.
Yeah.
And so, and then he says, and I got really scared because I thought, this idiot's going to take me in. And I got dope outside and a booze in the bushes. Like, I'm not going to stay.
Okay, why did you walk in then? Why did you walk in?
So it wouldn't be my fault. Nobody could blame me. Nobody could say I hadn't tried.
Oh. Okay.
Something like that. Who knows? Idiocy.
Fair enough.
So, anyways, and then he said to me, he said, "Oh, I know how you made it. You still got some left."
Oh, you asshole.
If you didn't have any dope, you wouldn't be here. You'd be out there getting some.
Yeah.
Guy like you, 38 years? No. You're not going to stop using on the way to my office. I said, "Yeah, I got some dope left." He said, "Look, if you don't die, come back tomorrow morning and I'll let you in." And so I went and I smoked the dope and drank the whiskey, and I didn't die. And I didn't think I could get better. I didn't think I'd have a good life. But I thought there was at least one person in the world who could understand how me showing up in that condition was the very best I could do. And so I went back to see him again. I went back to be understood. But I didn't go back to have a good life. I didn't go back to recover. None of that. Just went back to see him. And of course, then I started meeting and crossing all these little fine piano wires that I didn't even know were there. I mean, just there was a path that couldn't be predicted of individuals, including people I didn't like, helping me. Yeah. It was a funny thing. Yeah.
So was that your last use? Was that your last use then?
Well, so far.
Okay, we're gonna take a little break.
Okay.
Got to do the thing.
Do the thing.
You'll notice that I don't use happy music there because you and I both know that when we stop using, the problems really start. You know, this is not a bright and shiny moment for the most part. What was it like for your first year in recovery or healing or whatever you choose to call it?
Oh, it was terrifying most of the year because if I stay, because I didn't understand so many things, if I stabilized, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't use again, then what about all those years from my first treatment center, right? What had I done wrong? And how could I possibly live with myself and with my past? And what was I going to do in the future? And what was the point? Right? Death was a much more appealing option. Tragic story, too bad about Gord.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have to be afraid anymore about this happening again. And so that first year, I just marched. I marched. I went to, 1,000 peer groups. I went to 2 months at the hospital, 3 months at a men's treatment center, 5 months at a second stage housing, and 2 weeks at a second stage treatment center, and then went back to school. I graduated at 60, but at the end of the first year is really where things changed for me, Daniel. I stabilized, but I didn't really change till the second year.
Yeah.
The second year, someone said to me, "Now that you're okay, are you going to go and have your little life, or are you going to help other people?"
Yeah.
And I was intending to go and have my little life. I had just written up my resume again. I was going to try to get back to wheeling and dealing and trying to get some money for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe see if I had any charm left. And
yeah.
Right?
You didn't have any charm in the first year, though, right? Like, there was no charm there, was there?
Yeah. So I was 56-year-old man. A dentist stole my bottom teeth from me. Not all of them, but most of them. That first year, and I mean that. And so I was pretty toothless, and I didn't have an income, and I had no assets, and so I may have had some delusion about my dimples.
Yeah.
56-year-old toothless guys with no assets living in other people's basements. Not that charming.
Yeah.
Not that charming.
Fair enough. I mean,
people in my age group don't go, "Hey, you got nothing?" Jeez,
Yeah.
I was looking for somebody like you all my life.
Come on over. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So, and I had hurt so many people, Daniel. I had hurt so many people that I loved. That the last thing I wanted, okay, the last thing I wanted was to find myself in a position where my health might impact somebody else's life again. And I was not nearly, there was no evidence, say a year versus 38 years.
Yeah.
A blink in the eye. Right?
Yeah.
Why would I impose my hopes on someone else?
Yeah.
When they were so unfounded?
Yeah.
Even now, logically, if it's up to logic rather than imagination, the logic is I don't make it.
Yeah, you've been high longer than you've been sober.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah,
right?
Me too, man. Close. Me too.
Yeah. So it's in my imagination that I can make it again tomorrow. right? And I'm optimistic about that. But I'm also sane enough not to know the future anymore. And for someone like me, that's a good thing, because the future I used to know was my doom. I had no doubt in that. And so I'm in a much healthier place mentally. I'm curious about my life, curious what happens next, but I wouldn't want to tell you I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us, how'd you end up with CAPSA?
Oh,
Here we go.
you know, it's a funny thing.
Was it? Oh, hang on,
I
hang on.
ended.
Was it
Yes.
because of your shoes? Jason McCurdy, the person that we both know, messaged me today, and he just said, make sure you ask Gord about his shoes. So here we are. We've got these ones, and we've got these ones. Now, did these shoes have anything to do with you becoming the vice president of CAPSA?
Well,
I'd hire you.
There's three stories about the shoes, and they're all true, which is part of my life, right? So,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you them in order of, I guess, meaningfulness in some ways. And so they're eyewitness shoes. And so when the police interview the eyewitness and say, "What did the suspect look like?" they describe my shoes, which they took off when I got around the corner.
That's amazing. Why didn't I ever hear about that?
The other thing is that when I first went to treatment, the last time I went and began the treatment journey, I, of course, wouldn't waste any money on clothing. And so the only running shoes I had were 2 sizes too big, and they were big red Monopoly shoes, clown shoes. And then when I began helping people, people had their heads down. And they would never remember what I looked like or what I said, but they would always, oh, the guy with the shoes. And eventually they would start to look up, and then things would begin to change because there were people looking up, not looking down. But the shoes seemed to disarm people, and they were memorable. And so when I could finally buy another pair of shoes, I also bought something colorful. And the last true story, probably a lot more meaningful to me personally, was that when I was young, before all the terrible stuff happened, and I was married in my early 20s, the woman I married came home one day and said to me she had seen an old man downtown jogging with these bright running shoes on, and she thought she'd seen my future and our future together. And so, of course, that's been long, long gone. But I like to think that I have become the person we both thought I was going to be, and the shoes mean something to me that way.
That's really powerful, man. I mean, I was sort of poking fun at your shoes, but that's really meaningful. So
they're all true stories.
It's beautiful. I won't laugh at your colorful shoes ever again. That's powerful. Yeah. So why don't we get back to CAPSA? How did that come to be?
Oh, very reluctantly, like most of the good things I do. I really think mostly about, geez, I just think about myself all the time and what's good for me, and what I'd like, and what I don't like, and what I don't like. I'm not sure you got the kind of mind. I walk down the street and I see a dog I like and a cat I like, but a dog I don't like, and a house that's the wrong color. And anyways, so a friend of mine started CAPSA and said, "Come and help me." And I said, "Oh, I'm not doing that nonsense." Anyways, I got lured in, and I said, "Okay, I'll go to the board meetings, and try to keep you guys calmed down and out of trouble." But I'd seen that he'd made something really beautiful, really beautiful. This inclusive, all people, all pathways idea. This idea that not only could we help each other, but we could help our communities. Not only could we learn from each other, but we could teach others about us. And I'd had some troublemakers in my life by that time who would say things to me like I had a responsibility to use my talents to help other people and to not just do what I could get away with, but do all I could. And that my life would be better if I paid more attention to other people than to myself. And it was hard to believe that, eh? I mean, after all those years of difficulty and loss, isn't it time for me to save a little money? Isn't it time for me to have some stuff and keep it? So eventually I quit my job as a counselor and volunteered for a year and a half because I thought I could use my talents and make CAPSA into an organization that could stand. So now we've got 15 people working, and we've got researchers, and we're doing some really meaningful stuff as part of, I think, a broad cause that's across the country. We're not the only ones doing stuff, but we're certainly part of it. And I'm so pleased with how many people I've met that are making the difference. And those shoes have gone a long way. And I guess in some ways, telling the truth about all of us, right? Is the truth about all of us. There's my story, but what is our story, right? Our story is very powerful. My mentor used to say to me that, Gord, you're not that interesting.
Yeah. I've heard that before too of myself, yeah.
But he said, but if they think you're talking about them, they may listen. So I hope some people tonight have thought I was talking about them. Because I've tried to in my own way. I think the details of a story can pull us apart. At the heart of it, think about a scared child. Think about brutality. Think about trying to do our very best and not being successful. Thinking about not knowing what's wrong with us, only knowing what's going on. And then thinking about having that affirmed by the world that there's something wrong with you. That somehow this is all up to you. And trying to find your way through that. And then that terrible thing when somebody shows up in front of you and says, oh, I think you can have a better life. And so, well, I don't know how. Isn't that an awful thing to say? So my mentor once said to me, Daniel, he said, imagine, Gord, I know it's hard for you to think about you're wrong about anything, but imagine if the only thing you're wrong about is you can't have a good life. What would you do next if that was wrong? And I found that it was incredibly, my whole health has been based on being wrong about everything. I was wrong about not having a good life. I was wrong about not being able to stop. I was wrong about always hurting everybody I love. I was wrong about all that. How safe do you have to feel to be able to get to a place where you can be wrong about so much? You have to be with some people who are willing to sit with you in safety. Right?
So do you believe it's a disease?
I believe it's really complex. Okay? Disease isn't the word I would choose to use, but I would certainly say that brain function's involved, trauma is involved, vulnerability is involved. I would certainly say that no matter how we got here, the bigger question isn't how we got here, but how we're going to get from here. And that it all begins for me with some compassion for ourselves, right? And a willingness to set aside our past and we get to be curious again about our future rather than so certain of our doom. I believe we've all done our very best right up to this moment.
Yeah.
Right up to now. You don't care where you are. You're sitting outside tonight, you just got thrown out of the house, whatever that is. I still believe you've done your very best.
Yeah.
It's what we do. Yeah. We may not be thinking clearly. We may have some stuff we need to work on. We have some capacities to build. But certainly, none of us have sought a bad life. Even when we wrap ourselves in that blanket of I don't care. That's a beautiful blanket, when all your caring doesn't work.
Yeah.
You put on the I don't care blanket. Oh,
Yeah.
that feels better now.
Yeah.
But it also keeps me in the place of not moving and not changing. But it's my last emotional defense against my inability for my caring to impact my life.
Yeah. Well, we all
You
do
know,
our
so it
best
takes,
with. Sorry, we all do our best with
no, no,
what we feel and what we know at the time, right?
yeah. And lots of us are very skillful with other stuff, right?
Mm.
Gosh,
Yeah.
you know, I was a brilliant problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
Took me a long time to figure out I also got into a lot of problems.
Who's making all these problems that I have to solve?
Yeah. Oh, I'm great at getting out of this stuff. But
you got lots of practice.
Well, this is what turns out.
Yeah.
Maybe more practice than skillful.
Yeah, yeah. So, how is CAPSA carrying this message? Like you're trying to change the way we talk and the way we think about substance use. How are you doing that, like on a mass scale?
Well, a couple of things. We're doing it through social media, but we're also becoming educators, right? And when you do that, right, when you go to the professional organizations and you say, we've got something to teach you, right? And you can do that, then you can have relationship as equals with them. Mm-hmm. As long as what they want to know from you is, tell me about your experience at the hospital, Gord. Well, no. Let me talk to you about hospital design. I don't want to talk about what's on the menu. I want to talk about how the restaurant's designed. Okay? I don't want to tell you if I like the soup today. Yeah. Right? I don't want to tell you if the waiter is any good. I want to talk about the fact there wasn't enough. You know, so what do we have that we can teach, right? And one of the things we can teach them, because we've worked with each other, many of us, is that the ability to be with, to care for, without seeking power over other people. Mm-hmm. Putting down that terrible, fearful piece of, you're only cared for if you change, you're only cared for if you do what I want you to do, and I know what is good for you. And so if you do that, I'll like you, and if you do that, you come back. And if you come to my hospital, if you come to my treatment center, and you don't get better when you walk in the door, it's because you're unwilling, you're not ready. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Ready, not willing, ready. Not capable.
Yeah. What are you talking about? I came to the hospital. What do you think that is?
Willingness.
Okay. Willingness. Not only that, I came to the hospital. When I say we come to the hospitals, we come to the treatment centers, we come to the doctors, right? And we know already what they think of us. So that level of willingness, I'm going to come and withstand your disdain.
Yeah, brave the storm.
Brave the storm. That's how much I want to change. That's how much help I need, that I'm willing to stand in front of your disdain. Not everyone, right? Mm-hmm. But as a society, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you judge me for my success?
Of even getting it through the door. This is a success. I'm standing here in success with you, and look what's happening. Nothing.
Yes. I picked up. The first time I tried to get the treatment, I walked a couple of miles into town on a February night to a phone booth, and I called up, and somebody said, "Oh, we'll need to give you an assessment." I said, "Well, trust me, I have addiction."
Don't worry about it. Trust me.
This phone call is not an accident. Right?
Yeah.
You need to assess me. Well, I got it. I got it. And so that's how little respect we get. Yeah. If I went in with my wrist in my hand, and a broken arm, and I said, I got a broken arm, they never say, oh, well, we'll have to see if you really got one. They say, no, we'll have to do x-rays to see the nature of it. Right? But they're not going to question if I got a broken arm. No, that arm's broken. Yeah, okay, well, trust me. If I call a hotline for substance use and addiction, I qualify.
Yeah,
this is not an accident.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
good here. We're
well,
good. I got it.
sorry, wrong number.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Back to the cardboard box I go.
Well, and then we're back to the famous assessment questions. Have you
Oh,
ever
God.
thought about using that? Yes, I called the hotline. Yeah, that was
I called
legit.
you.
Yeah,
I called you.
I called you.
Yeah.
Yes. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah. Fuck.
It was. I love them. They're like, they really do mean, right? And it's this idea that they need to know what the best services they can get you into and all that kind of stuff. But all we want to know is that our call is not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that I'm not mistaken for thinking there might be help for me. We can get into details later. But just say, hey, it's great you called. So many people have, and so many lives have changed. Wow, let's get on this now. There's some stuff we got to do together. And don't you ever dare tell me I'm at the wrong door.
No shit. And I can help you right now. Like, we're an impulsive bunch, man. Like, if we make this phone call, we make this fucking phone call, and they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll see you in 6 to 8 weeks. Well, I'm gonna be dead in 6 to 8 weeks. So, you know.
Well, and that whole idea, right? Look, to see if you really want help,
call
in 2
every
weeks
day.
from now, 9:00 on Monday morning, you call.
Yeah.
And then we'll assess you. And it's like, if I could call someone 2 weeks from now at 9:00 on Monday morning, I wouldn't be making this phone call.
Yeah. No shit.
Do you get that?
Yeah. It's like,
if my life was working that well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
over?
this. No, we are not over. So it's like, you know, you call the detox. You got to call every day, or you'll be taken off the list. That's like saying, okay, I got a broken leg, and they're saying, okay, well, you walk around that block 3 times and walk through this front door, and then maybe we'll put a cast on you in 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, but don't complain.
No,
then we know you got attitudinal issues.
Yeah, or you'll be out of here.
Yeah,
means you don't want it.
Non-compliant is great, but you don't really want it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, can I show you something?
By all means.
Okay.
Whatever it is, I won't make fun of it. I feel bad about making fun of the shoes now after you told that story.
Oh gosh, no.
Here we go. I'll put you on full screen for this one. There we go.
Yeah. Daniel, you making fun of my shoes is not going to go down on my list of difficulties in my life.
Okay.
I got a few things, right?
Okay.
That's not it.
Okay.
Anyways, so look.
Yeah. What are we looking at?
These are the qualities important supporting each other: living wisdom in action.
Mm-hmm.
That's from the Dope Squad, who's do outreach work at the Somerset West Community Health Center here in Ottawa. They knock on rooming house doors and ask people if they can help them today. It's beautiful, made me cry. Eh? The qualities that we bring to each other.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of similar. You see, compassion's in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That's from a professional organization about how they think people should be treated.
Mm-hmm.
So what stands between professional healthcare workers and organizations and how they think they should treat people and how we think we need to treat each other are systems and false beliefs that block those experiences from connecting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a bunch of bad people intentionally hurting us in this world. I think there's a whole bunch of people with false beliefs about how to help us, with ignorance in the truest sense of the word, without knowledge, right? And with a great level of fear. Because they don't want to feel powerless. They don't want to feel that they can't do anything. You know? And so I think we need to be very kind with each other and to speak kindly of them. Although I've been roasting them a little bit tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of hypocritical. Yeah, but I mean, I do it too. I roast them all the time.
So I just want to stop that for a moment and just talk about, their frustrations. So I ask everybody to listen tonight, and, when was the last time you went back to the hospital or back to the doctor and said, by the way, 10 years ago, when I was here, I'm having a better life now, wherever that is for you. Mm-hmm. And so part of the work that CAPS has done is we've gone around to all these places and said, hey, there's actually a million of us that you've helped. But our experiences are so traumatic at the time, we just flee those places, right? We go back, and if someone does stabilize their life, whether that's in abstinence or in managed use, doesn't really matter. If their life's more stable, that's a period of life they don't talk about with anybody publicly, right? Their friends and family members don't talk about anybody. What we really need to do is ring the bell like it's a cancer thing. Hey, I'm okay. The family should celebrate. Why not? Well, stigma is why not. And so one of the wonderful experiences I have, Daniel, working with CAPSA is I go to all these public events and they speak at all these places, but I know I am with my brothers and sisters. Yeah, I know I'm with folks who know someone, are someone, maybe struggling, maybe healthy, but they're there. And I get the great privilege of saying, yeah, you can see me. It's okay. And what they experience in those moments may not be enough for them to say, yes, I'm here with you. But they experience all the other people in the room and say, well, my sister struggled, my dad struggled, my Aunt Jane, right? And they find out how much support they have that they didn't know they had. And it becomes safer for them. Yeah. Well, it's what's happened in civil rights and women's rights, LGBT twin spirit rights. It takes a while. It is a process. And of course, the devastations of what's going on in our country today is such that we'd like it to happen tomorrow. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But there's an old saying that the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago. And the second best day is today. Yeah. So we do today what we can to change the minds and attitudes and hearts of Canadians towards people who use substances and people who used to use substances.
Yeah. So let's go into the viewer's voice.
Can I share one thing with you? It's hilarious.
Let's do it.
I was going through a process the other day. At the end of the process, someone said to me, is there anything in your past that would cause disrepute?
How big was the answer box?
And so I said, well, here's the interesting thing. I can look you in the eye today and tell you no, but I'm not sure you've got the same answer as me. Our behaviors are real. I did hurt people. I took things that weren't mine. That's not everybody's story with substances, but it certainly was mine. Mm-hmm. I disturbed people's lives. I brought the devastation and heartache to people. It was like a darkness in the doorway. That's all true. None of that has changed. Anything I do today is not to change my past. I can't change my past. Mm-hmm. There's no balancing. There's no scale there that says, 20 good things today and 4,000 bad things yesterday. Keep going, Gord, right? Yeah. You can't do that, right? What you need to do is, how can I live today in a way that matches my person, my aspirations, my goals about how to be a human being? Mm-hmm. And accept the reality that past is a true story. But I've given up all hopes for different ones. That allows me to live differently today, because I'm not stuck back there trying to change things that have already happened.
Acceptance is the key to all our problems. You believe that statement? That's an old one.
No. Yeah, but I don't believe it.
All right.
Otherwise, I'd be smoking crack. Would have accepted my addiction.
Yeah. You know what? That's a fucking good point.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So living in reality, right? Acknowledging the truth. That is a great place to be. Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the courage to look at any of my friends from the past and say, you know, that time I hurt you, it shouldn't hurt anymore because I did something nice today.
Mm-hmm.
What a bizarre statement, you know? Like they don't experience what I did today,
Yeah.
right? They experience what I did when I hurt them,
Yeah.
you know?
Well.
So, you know, yeah, anyway, so I can. And so the one thing that was critical for me to acknowledge, right, was I didn't know how to live.
Yeah.
I knew how to survive. I knew how to endure. I didn't know how to live.
Let's go into the viewer's voice. We'll look at some comments. We'll chat a little bit more.
Sure.
All right. Now comes the nice music. What do you think, Gord? Do you think I picked good music?
It's very nice to be here, Daniel.
All right. Let's look at some comments.
I don't know what I'm going to... Yeah.
Okay. So we've got... let's see. We've got Donna chiming in. This is from a little ways back in the conversation, but she was talking about, when we were talking about pull up your bootstraps mentality, Donna says that ideology prevented me from admitting to needing and subsequently seeking help. The compassionate harm reduction approach found me, and I found a better path. Right on, Donna.
That's what I got to say about that, Donna. Yay.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We got John chiming in. John says, thanks for the comment, John. Good to see you again. John says, with every other illness, the general public sees the suffering as a person they could know. With addictions, they don't see a sick person needing help. They see an addict, which sadly they associate with being lesser or not worthy of the same care. Many believe we should just quit our addictions like we would a job. What do you think, Gord?
Well, absolutely. That's that false belief. So if you look at stigma as being grounded in deeply held false beliefs that allow a group of people to stigmatize and oppress others, either openly or by silent compliance. What's the false belief? Absolutely that we should just quit. Like it's never dawned on us, right? Oh, geez, there's an idea. Gosh, thanks a lot for coming out. That's over now. And so that whole, and again, the idea of suffering brings about change, right?
Yeah.
We don't get the diagnosis unless suffering doesn't bring the change. And so it is all about ignorance. And I truly believe that education is a pathway to changing people's minds and people's attitudes from there.
We've got Chris chiming in. Thanks for the comment, Chris. Chris says, thank you guys so much. We need to keep lobbying the provincial government to better support our efforts and the needs of our relatives. Calling a detox to stay on a wait list until someone gets a bed is just not good enough. Is he right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, he's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Just simple. Yeah. And yet, you know, the big question, why?
Yeah.
Right? And the why is because it's for us. That's why there's no beds. Right? Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got for comments. Gord, is there anything that you would like to leave us with tonight?
I have a sense of optimism, you know, about all these things that are going on. And I wanted to share that with the people listening today, that we need to nurture ourselves as we're rolling this rock up the mountain. We may wake up tomorrow and find it's back where we thought we had moved it from. And so I wanted everyone to remember that when we act in kindness in the support of others, that's a beautiful thing and a beautiful way to live. What results from those decisions and efforts may be beyond our control, but our decision to be kind always is within our control.
Awesome, man. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll let you go, my friend. Take care. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
All the best. Thanks, Daniel.
You're very welcome. Oh, what the